What's going on, guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be going over 5 things that I hate about my Alfa Romeo Giulia. Let's go. Quick disclaimer, these are just 5 things I'm sharing with you over my 2 years of ownership that I've come to not like about this car. It isn't perfect, but it's still a great car, and these are not reasons why I would never buy this car again. So just stay tuned and let's get into thing number 1. Alrighty, so the first thing I hate about my Alfa Romeo Giulia is the exhaust sound. Now, when you pick this car up from factory, the exhaust is, well, very lackluster. It kind of sounds like a turbocharged vacuum cleaner. Take a listen. Now, for what's supposed to be an enthusiast car, an Italian, raucous, beautifully designed performance sedan, that's really not the kind of exhaust you want to hear out of this thing. So I remedied that by adding an AFE muffler delete kit, and now it sounds like this. Much better, right? This is what the Alfa should have sounded like from factory, but I think Alfa just missed the mark a little bit with that stock exhaust note, and it just detracts from the driving experience a little bit having it be so quiet. So let's get into thing number 2. Alright, the second thing I hate about my Alfa Romeo Giulia is the factory restrictions that come with it. So for example, again, this is a sport performance oriented vehicle. It's supposed to be a driver's car, supposed to be really fun, and it's supposed to be a car that you can just take anywhere and do anything with. However, nowhere in this car is there the ability to turn off traction control, and that is such a bummer. For a car, especially if you get this in the rear-wheel drive version, you want to be able to slide this around. You want to be able to have some fun with this thing and take it, and on a track maybe even, and you don't want the nannies interfering with you. Yet, there's so many electrical nannies and things in this car that you can't turn off. Now, if you come down here, if you were to get the quadrifoglio models, there'd be an additional race mode that you could put this in, and that turns off traction and stability control already. However, in the base Giulias, you don't get that. There's no way to turn it off. Now, I've seen people try to code it in by adding race mode, to their Alfa through multi-scan ECU, or they do some funny thing where they disconnect the battery and it turns off traction control. But again, that's not an Alfa Romeo sanctioned thing, and you don't want to be tampering around your vehicle. You want a safe way, a button or something to turn off traction control, and that's not a thing. On a Toyota Camry, you can turn off the traction control, but in here, you just can't, and I find that really disappointing. I also find it really disappointing that this car has a soft limiter. So now I put this expensive exhaust on it, and you want to hear the car, but you're limited. It's supposed to be a performance car that you can rev out and have some fun with, and yet you can't show it off to anybody, any of your friends, because it sits here and it's got a soft limiter. So let's take a listen to that. So as you can see, about 4,300 RPM, the car has a soft limiter on it, which it just stinks. I would like it to be able to rev out a little more. It's just not ideal. It's still better than the Germans though. And another thing from factory is that this car does not have a dipstick, and that's probably my biggest gripe with it. Not having a dipstick is just a pain in the butt, and I know it's not just this car, Alfa Romeo, but I do have to gripe it on it because it's just so hard to check the oil level. Now, I recently got my oil changed, and because of the way you have to go about doing it, checking the oil, you have to do it through the infotainment system here. So if we go to the infotainment system and we go to the car, you can go to car status, you scroll all the way over, and you have to check the oil level through this. Now, as you can see, it says to get an updated reading, you have to have the car idling for 5 minutes on a flat surface. Now, this is really not conducive for checking your oil because the car doesn't deem a lot of surfaces as flat surfaces. And so it doesn't give you a very accurate reading, nor an immediate one either. So I just got my oil changed the other day, and they gave it back to me and everything seemed fine. But then the oil overfill light came on, because it's so hard to judge exactly where to put the right amount of oil in this car, because there's no dipstick and you have to go through this process like 3-4 times for it to be 100% correct. I don't know if you guys can see it now, but on the bottom there, I have the oil overfill light constantly on because they screwed up filling up the oil. They overfilled it slightly because it was so hard to check where exactly the oil level is. So I just think that in a world of electronics and all that, we should just keep a normal dipstick. And this car also falls into that trap where electronics get the better of it. So factory restrictions, not great. Would love to see some more mechanical things and just some more options to disable the nannies and get this car to drive exactly how you want it. So let's move on to third thing I hate about this car. All right, the third thing I hate about my Alfa Romeo Giulia is the reverse camera. So if we come over here and I throw the car into reverse, you'll see it's a really low resolution reverse camera. Now the camera is wet, so it is making it harder to see. However, as you can tell, it's super low resolution. It's very small. I mean, you have this giant screen and this is all you get. Now you do get trajectory lines and all that, but it's just not great for a car in this price point. There are plenty of other vehicles that are half this car's price that give you better options in terms of backup cameras. But that's not even the worst part about it. The worst part about it is that when you're in reverse, everything else doesn't work. You cannot change the climate controls. As you can see, I'm going here, nothing happens to the climate controls. You can't fiddle around with the screen. You can't change your radio. You can barely change your volume. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it won't allow you to do anything. Now, if you put the car back into drive, look how long it takes for the camera to go back. I've been in drive for at least 15 seconds now, and the camera is still on, and it's still not letting me do anything. If I do the graphic there, only now, once the camera is away, does it switch and show me the graphics on the screen. So, again, if we throw it back into reverse, it gets kind of confused sometimes. Like if you're in reverse and you're trying to change the drive mode and you're trying to turn up your volume, the screen doesn't really know what to do, and it just kind of freezes up. And this is especially true when the car is cold. The colder the car is, the slower the screen is. Now, if I put it back into drive now, watch how long it takes for the camera to disappear. And it's just annoying because you're trying to drive, you're trying to do other stuff, and the camera, because it's still on the screen, stops you from accessing any climate controls, nothing. So it's a good 20 seconds after you put the car back into drive that the camera actually fades away. So that's just something that's really annoying. You do get used to it, but I do think it's something you need to think about when buying this car. All right, the fourth thing I hate about the Alfa Romeo Giulia is the climate controls. Now, I don't hate the climate controls themselves. They are physical knobs and buttons, and everything makes sense and is laid out in a really nice way. What I do hate is the AC in this car. Now, being a black interior, full black interior, this car heats up really quick. Now, I don't live somewhere where it's necessarily hot all the time, but if you park this car out in the sun for 15-20 minutes, it heats up really badly inside. And so you want to come in the car and you want to cool it down. However, climate control system are not very conducive for cooling the car down. You can crank the AC, but it takes a long time for the AC to start working. It feels like the car is constantly trying to play catch up and it just can't keep up with the demand of the heat. And you can turn it all the way down and crank it and it'll blast the AC, but you feel like you're stressing the car and it just doesn't work the greatest. It takes a long time for the car to actually kick in and start to cool down the cabin. And so it's just kind of annoying because it's like, well, if you're gonna get a black interior on the car, you hope that the AC actually works, but it very slowly starts to cool down the cabin, and it just is a little bit annoying with how long it takes and what you have to do to really cool down this cabin. So the heat is a little bit better. I can't really complain about the heat, but the AC definitely isn't as great as it could be, especially compared to its competitors. It does take a long time for it to cool down the inside of the car. And that takes us to our fifth and final thing that I hate about my Alfa Romeo Giulia. And that is not so much to do with the car, but with the dealers and the servicing of the vehicle. Now, I live about an hour and a half from the closest Alfa Romeo dealership, which is kind of a problem because it makes it hard to do any dealer work, any warranty work, any recalls, or if you just want to go and take the car to get serviced at a dealer versus taking it to some other mechanic nearby. Now, this may not be a problem for any of you guys who live in maybe bigger cities where there's a lot more dealerships around. However, with me, where I live in a sort of smaller town, having the closest dealership almost 2 hours away is not really conducive for anything, especially for getting service done. Now, I've also had friends and family who have owned Alfa Romeos and Maseratis and have gone to get service at the dealerships, or have just gone to purchase or trade in a car and haven't had the greatest experience there. The customer service at the dealerships tends to not be great. They tend to treat you as inferior, as if you're not worthy of owning an Alfa Romeo or a Maserati or whatever it is that you're servicing there. And they kind of treat you like you're a nobody, and it's very disheartening because these are very niche cars and they're not necessarily cheap. So they treat you like you can't afford the vehicles, and we just haven't had greatest experience with most of the dealerships up and down the East Coast. Now, that's not to say that they're all bad. There are good dealerships with good people that work there and very good mechanics. However, just to be warned, there are some that are not that great. So, for example, if your car happens to break down, or you need like a trailer or something to bring the car to the dealership for service, Alfa Romeo won't provide it. They have a hard time like sending you a flatbed truck or anything to help you get your car there. They really aren't comfortable with doing that, and they're really not willing to help you sometimes, which is a pain in the butt because now you have a broken down car and you have to pay for flatbedding before even getting the car to the service and fixing it. Or warranty work, they're not really great about getting you in and making you like feel comfortable that everything's okay. They just kind of sometimes are a bit shisty, a bit standoffish, and the dealer really just sometimes can be a disheartening point about buying this car, because you can go to Porsche, you can go to BMW and treated like a king, whereas you come to Alfa Romeo and they don't really treat you as well as you should be. I'll tell you guys a quick story about this. So my dad and I, he used to own a Maserati Gran Turismo. So we were getting that serviced at that dealership that was about an hour and a half away from us. And so while we were waiting for the car to be serviced, we were inside the showroom looking around, and it was 2018 when the new Stelvio and Giulia Quadrifolios had just come out. So we were checking out a Stelvio Quadrifoglio. Now, to preface, the dealership has a big glass window, and there was one car in front of the Stelvio, and it could have easily been pulled out so that the cars could come out and we could drive and whatever. So my dad's asking the guy, a few questions, and he's getting pretty serious about actually purchasing and, looking at the car. And so he asked the dealer, is it possible for me to test drive it today before I, make a decision? And the dealer kind of just gave him his look and was like very standoffish, like, well, wait, that's not, why would I waste my time if you're not serious about the car? And my dad was like, well, we are serious about it. He's like, I'm not gonna, it's been 20 years since Alfa Romeo has produced a car. I'm not gonna just simply walk in here and buy it without knowing how it drives. And the dealer kind of just refused to let us drive it and was kind of just being an a-hole about everything, and kind of made it seem like we were wasting his time. So it's amazing that you can pull up with $100,000, plus Maserati Gran Turismo, and they still, will treat you as inferior, as a kind of waste of the time. So it's just something to be weary of. It doesn't happen with everything. If you have a good local mechanic, definitely don't worry about the dealer as much, because this car has been super reliable. I haven't really had to take it. Actually, I've never taken it to the dealer for any sort of work. I've just done standard maintenance on it, and I've been totally fine. So you might be lucky enough to avoid a dealership altogether, depending on where you buy this car and how it treats you. So that's just something to be wary of. Alrighty, so that is going to be the end of the video. That is 5 things that I dislike about my Alfa Romeo Giulia. Now, you guys might agree with me, you might disagree with me, but I would love to hear what you guys have to think in the comments below. If there's any other points that you think are, major no-goes for this car, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to take a look at them, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. But I also would love to see if you guys are interested in seeing 5 things I love about my Alfa Romeo Giulia. I'd love to make a video like that, going over exactly why I bought this car and highlighting all the best points and features of this vehicle. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. If you did enjoy, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We have more awesome videos just like this one coming, and there should be a lot of cool cars coming to the channel as well as more content with this beautiful Alfa Romeo. All right? So if you did enjoy, again, please leave a like, subscribe, and thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.